Hi, I'm Erica Compton. It is 6:15 on a Wednesday morning, and yesterday I gave a talk to the Staffordshire Police Force to help with their training in managing people with in distress and with a mental health problem. And what I wanted to do was share that online in case the police force found it useful for refresher courses, or if any other police forces that aren't doing talks or can't get a speaker wanted to use it, or just anyone that's interested. I thought I'd share it online so people can access it for free. So I'm going to be talking about managing people in distress. I'm Erica, a freelance writer and mental health campaigner. I'm working on my first book, The Beginner's Guide to Sanity, with a psychiatrist in Edinburgh, Stephen Laurie, and that's out on Hammersmith Health Books. I live alone in a little cottage in Staffordshire with two adopted tomcats, Casper and Winter. This is the cottage, this is the office, and I've experienced distress and suicidal thoughts, and I've survived. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to look at what distress feels like, what worked for me when dealing with distress, what didn't work for me when dealing with distress, a case study who's been in contact with the police. I spoke to him, so I'll look a little bit about his experience. I wanted to end the brief talk on a positive, so I'm going to look at it's not all that bad and how you can exemplify hope when you're dealing with people in distress, and then I'll just summarise some of the key findings at the end. So, what does distress feel like? Well, 10 years ago, I made an attempt on my life. There'd been a few factors that had led to that. I'd come off my medication. I'd been reading anti-psychiatry literature. I'd come off my medication. I had a job as a lecturer at a university, and I was fired from that job for not declaring I had a mental illness. And then I moved around trying to settle down, trying to find somewhere to live, and I went from London to Stafford to Birmingham, and I ended up in a urban part of Birmingham, quite a rundown part of Birmingham, Sparkbrook, and it was in a flat share. There were some mice in the house. It was really quite unpleasant, but I ended up there and things really started to unravel. I'd lost my job, I was unemployed. I didn't know at the time what benefit I could apply for unemployment, so I put in two applications, one for JSA and one for ESA, Employment Support Allowance, and because I'd put the two applications in, both of them were rejected because I couldn't get both benefits, and I was kind of high and dry financially. My mental health was deteriorating. I couldn't access the local GP surgery. I'd already become too paranoid by then. So there was no meds, no support, no money, and I grew very isolated very quickly. I did have a little bit of work on, and I pretty much couldn't go in. I said that I got the flu and just sort of ended it. And how did that appear to others? Well, I think isolation is kind of really is a warning sign that someone's not doing very well with their mental health and that they might be becoming distressed. But also weight loss for me. I was 10 stone at the time. In those 2 weeks that I was distressed, I lost about 2 stone and went down to just over 8 stone. So weight loss was a big factor. And I just think at the time I was so deeply psychotic. I felt that I was Britain's most wanted criminal. I was spending hours, I wasn't sleeping. I was spending hours online researching unsolved crimes, and putting myself at the centre of those. And I just felt the police were after me. If I saw a helicopter outside, it was just an air ambulance. But I thought, oh, they're coming after me, and things really started to get very tense, and ultimately I wanted to die before the police come to capture me and before I was kind of named and shamed in the papers. So that was where I was 10 years ago, in distress, deeply psychotic, losing lots of weight, very isolated, and these are what led ultimately to a suicide attempt. So what worked for me when dealing with distress? Well, I think there's a few things that kind of starved off the suicide attempt. I had a flatmate who lived in the room next door to me, and he was really lovely. He took me out for dinner one night, and I did actually go for the dinner, probably at the start of the 2 weeks before I started coming unwell. And sorry, the cat's just scratching the mirror. Hey, stop it. So yeah, the flatmate would he would knock on my room before he went to work. Are you okay, Erica? Do you want some breakfast? And he would leave some cereal outside. And then he'd get home from work and he would say, Erica, are you okay? Would you like some dinner? And then he'd leave some food outside. So he'd obviously noticed that I was losing weight when he saw me scuttle into the bathroom. And he was obviously concerned, and he stepped up and he tried to help. And that was really, really helpful and really reassuring. So I made the attempt on my life, and having access to a phone was really helpful because I could call A&E. And what especially helped me during that time was that it'd been quite rainy during those 2 weeks I was poorly, and it was April, and the spring sunshine was just flooding through the window right after the suicide attempt. And it warmed my cheeks. It gave me hope. Essentially, that sunlight just flooded me with hope, and I suddenly felt like I'm too young to die. I was 29, and you know, I found hope in that sunshine, and it was really important to me. And I think a nice message from a Belle and Sebastian song, actually, one of my favourite bands, is that no matter who you are, what you do, where you go, you always see that same sunshine. So that's something that's universal and that can bring hope to anybody, the sun. So I was filled with hope. I had access to a phone, and I was able to call accident and emergency services, and they came within 10 minutes. Really helpful. I didn't have a chance to change my mind, and they were just really understanding, really they were really emphatic. They were very calm. They were very soothing. There was one lady in particular that I think took the lead of my care, and she actually held my hand and told me everything was going to be okay. And I told her, I've done this crime, I've done that crime, you know, they're out to get me. And she was like, well, we don't know about the police coming to get you, and I'm sure it'll be fine, and you don't need to worry, you are young. And she reinforced the hope that the sun had given me, that maybe I was too young to die anyway. So we went off to A&E, and the NHS saved my life. Emergency services saved my life, essentially. And they soothed me. They made me feel that everything was going to be all right. And I think that way of talking to someone, and I think talking is key, but sort of reassuring, calming, you know, just bringing things down a level was so helpful. Because I felt I was Britain's most wanted criminal, I didn't want to bring shame on my family and friends. So I didn't actually tell anyone I was in A&E for the 3 days that I was there. And then I saw a psychiatric team on the third day, and they were very good as well. There was a team of 3 of them, and we sat in a tiny little room, and I still don't know which hospital this is to the day. I was so out of it. I don't know where I was, somewhere in Birmingham. But we're in this little room, and the psychiatrists were talking to me. They were saying, what do you think? They were looking at my thoughts, and they were saying, well, maybe it could be psychosis. And they were just seeding that idea that maybe I wasn't a criminal and maybe everything was going to be okay. And that was quite reassuring too. And they says, we're gonna get you back on your medication, and we're gonna take you to a psychiatric facility. So that was good to know, and I think it was around then that I started questioning whether I was this kind of fugitive. And yeah, it was just nice. It took a while for I had like an ambulance come for me. They put me in a little wheelchair with a blanket over my legs, and I was kind of carted off to a psychiatric facility, just a bit like Britney Spears, you know, when she had her famous breakdown, except I hadn't shaved my head. So I ended up on the psychiatric ward, and I started to think maybe I am psychotic, and the nurse encouraged me, the nurse at the psychiatric facility encouraged me to call a family member, and it was my dad that I called. I think, well, they called on my behalf, and my dad came so quickly, and he brought a bag of clothes. There was some perfume in there, and the perfume was so important. I mean, the thing that really struck me when I entered that psychiatric ward was that it just stank of urine. It was grim, and it was so grim that I thought, maybe I'm a criminal and I deserve this. You know, it was kind of like, you know, this is what you get. It was horrible. But my dad brought this lovely perfume. It was Lanvin. And I squirted that in the room, made the room smell nice. And it was just something as simple as a nice perfume really sort of changed the experience for me. And seeing my dad, you know, I was out of it. I don't think he got much sense out of me. He thinks that I was like a lost soul back then, and I was so skinny. But yeah, it was so reassuring to have some things, some home comforts in that sterile environment. That was really helpful. And then once I'd got my things and the morning came after a night's sleep, I got some medication. Now, that's quite contentious for some people. Some people think that medication is a real evil. But for me, it works. I was in a crisis. I was really, really poorly, and I needed that medication to start to get better and challenge my own thoughts. So those were all factors that really helped me. What didn't work for me, there was a few things. Basically, services are so stretched, and I think that comes from the government, the Conservative government. Things are so stretched that there was no time to stop and talk to me. Once I'd had that time with the emergency services, I was pretty much left until I saw the psychiatrist team. I was pretty much left in the bed and then in the waiting room, and I was shuffled around here, there and everywhere, but I was never actually told what was going on. And keeping me in the dark about my care plan just let my mind get carried away with the criminal delusions, and I just it wasn't helpful. They were too busy to stop and help and reassure me. And I think just someone holding your hand and just for 30 seconds and saying everything's going to be okay, I think would have gone so far. Social media exacerbated my problems. Like, I was seeing stuff online, and it was just it was really quite, I was reading stuff into things that weren't there, and the crimes. And I think that social media can be a force for good. You know, you can find help online. But in that time of crisis, because my mind was going off in all directions and I didn't have much control over it, you know, the internet kind of tended to exacerbate problems. There's a lot of horrible stuff on there, and you kind of find it when you're psychotic. I put this in metaphors with no context. When I was really poorly, it didn't help at all. And I put this in because recently I gave a talk to students about how metaphors can help in therapy. You know, they can make someone feel really good. Conversely, when you're deeply psychotic and paranoid, they can make you feel really bad, especially if they have no context. So when I got onto that psychiatric ward, there was a poem left in the room, and it was Wordsworth's Lonely as a Cloud. And I was like, oh, they wanted me to know how lonely I'm going to be because I'm this wanted criminal. And it didn't work. That metaphor, when you're paranoid, I don't think any words can make you feel good. I think that was a really bad idea to leave that there. And also, like, the clinical environment, the fact that it stank so much of urine, and it was a bit prison-esque, the hospital, which really didn't help. It just kind of reinforced the idea that I was a criminal and that I deserved to be locked up. Because these psychiatric facilities are quite high security. You can't get out. Once you're in, you can't get out. And that was quite, you know, oh, I'm in here now and I can't get out. And I could get out of A&E. I could have just walked off. But in the psychiatric facility, there's no escaping, and that was quite scary. So that was my experience of being in distress. But because this talk is for the police, I wanted to draw on someone else's experience who had been in touch with the forces. And I met Pat, who's a 44-year-old man living in London. I met him through a peer support group. He's a 44-year-old man living with bipolar, and he's been in touch with the police a few times. Because of manic episodes mainly, he suffers from bipolar and he has mania, and he might get a little bit out of control. So he's been arrested a number of times, and the things that he says would help him, especially talking, would really help him. And he thinks that a calming, soothing, reassuring talk with someone would help bring his mania down a little bit. Just like I said, you know, you can talk someone down from these things, you know. I think it's a real skill, and I'm not sure I can do it myself, but, you know, it can be done. Talking to him would also help you ascertain whether he's unwell or just wreaking havoc. He is unwell when he has these manic episodes. He needs psychiatric help. He needs to go to hospital. But often people aren't talking to him. They're just arresting him, and then putting him in a cell. So talk to him. He agrees that the clinical environments really aren't helpful, especially prison cells. So if he does end up in a cell, give him a blanket, you know, these home comforts. You look like me in the perfume. Pat's thing is a blanket, and he doesn't want to be sat in the cold, sterile environment of a prison cell. He wants a blanket so he can try and get some sleep, and so he's got something reassuring there to hold on to. So that's Pat's thoughts. So I think talking, calming, soothing, reassuring, these are all key to dealing with people when they're in manic or psychotic or whatever it is, you know, when they're in these suicidal states. So it isn't all bad. This is the slide I wanted to end on. So even at the worst times, there are still glimmers of hope, and I think that for others dealing with someone in distress, that hope can be amplified. So for me, it was the sunshine. So if it's a nice sunny day and someone's in distress, focus on the sun. If they're sweltering hot and the sun isn't making them uncomfortable, go somewhere nice and shady and talk about how lovely and cool and refreshing the shade is. Having nice things to hand to make environments less clinical, you know. Someone always has a glimmer of hope, you know. They always have a passion or something that they love, be it art, you know, focus on a piece of art in their house. Did you draw that? You know, what's that about? Who's that artist? And you know, if there's a book, you know, what's this book about? You know, there's always things around in the environment that you can kind of help people with. So for me, it was the sunshine. My dad coming to visit and bringing that perfume was so crucial. And these things really helped. So I think there is always hope, even in the most dire situations. And it's just a case of teasing that out, whether you do it yourself and remember to do it if you have that insight, or whether it's someone else giving that to you. I think that's really important. So to summarise, we're at 17 minutes 52 and my speech was 20 minutes. So I think that's quite okay timing. But to summarise, kindness and talking key when dealing with people in distress. Talking to gauge diagnosis really helpful. So talking. Promoting hope, you know, teasing out those glimmers of hope for people. And it could even be love, you know. If there's no hope, maybe it can be something a person loves and, you know, holds dear, a family member, a picture of a child, a picture of a pet, you know, something like that. And what also really helps is trying to make environments less clinical. So bringing in familiar things, the comfort blanket, the perfume, things like that. So that was my talk, and I was really grateful. It was an honour to speak for the police. I hope that there's something in there that can help others. There was nice feedback. All the other speakers were amazing, and they all brought something different to the table. And yeah, thank you for listening.